Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Vince.
What a drag. Isn't there something more interesting going on?
We've got Chris.
He died 500 years ago with a stake in his heart.
Oh my god. And I'm Kia. Hello everybody. Welcome to the show. Today we are talking about a comic from the 1970s, 1973 called Prez, about the first teen president. That's right. It's about how in what year was it? 1969 they lowered the voting age restrictions to 18, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this story is about how, like, okay, what if then the teens take over Congress and take over the Senate and vote to lower the age requirement for the president, and if the teen becomes president, cool. Chris, you picked this one for us. You wanna talk a little more about it?
Sure. Joe Simon, the co-creator of Captain America, created Prez. So
legend, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, a guy that was making comics in 1941. He is not a teen, believe it or not, in the 1970s. 30 years later.
Mm-hmm.
I assume he was a grown man when he made Captain America, not like a 12-year-old. But still, he's at least in his 50s, if not older, when he's making this comic.
Unless he's Benjamin Buttoning it.
Oh, no, I've seen pictures of him because I was looking at his Wikipedia in the 2000s. He was an old man, so we can confirm that it is not a Benjamin Button situation.
Yeah, he actually lived until like 2005 or 6.
No kidding, wow.
I think it's 2011, like even later.
Did he see Captain America 1 come out then?
He must have.
Wow.
Wow. What an old
When
dude.
did Captain America 1 come out?
11? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Wow. Well, good for him. Oh, no, was that? Yeah, 2011, so he might have. All right. Anyways, this guy is an absolute legend, and he did this with, what's the artist's name? Jerry Grandinetti?
Grandinetti, yes.
It's not a name that I'm like super familiar with, but he did The Spirit with Will Eisner, which is equally big and legendary. And
we're probably not going to talk too much about the art in this, but it is really good, I think.
It is, yeah. It's got that kind of style where everything's real detailed, and there's a lot of fun stuff going on in the background, and like he doesn't phone it in ever. Like, it's always just really fun, and I really enjoy it.
And it has really like spirit-y or 1940s-y like title chapters, which are like every time there's a little flourish, which is a nice touch.
Mm-hmm. Should we just jump right into this? We're reading the first 4 issues. Well, I guess the only 4 issues. We'll talk more about that later. But the first 4 issues here. Let's just jump right in. So it's about this young teen named Prez Rickard. What was his first name? Was it Preston? And it was just like Prez for short.
Prez. His mom just named him Prez because she wanted him to become president. Which my notes say, this is fucking stupid.
Yeah, Prez with a Z, by the way. That was just kind of
and it's not the 90s, guys. It's not the 90s, and his name has a Z in it.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's ahead of its time, right?
Fucking A. We also read Sandman 54 from Neil Gaiman.
Oh, that's right. Well, yeah, we'll talk about that later. You're right.
Weirdly makes his name better for me.
Really? Oh, I think we might disagree. I like this a lot, Vince, and it already kind of sounds like you're a little on the wobbly side of this
I'm
one.
very incredulous towards the path towards how Prez Rickard became president.
It's terrible.
It starts off. This is not a true story. Not yet. But someday it may happen. And my notes say, let's fucking hope not. But I mean, we just elected a child, so,
Yeah.
Like, the oldest president we have is not working out for us, so maybe an 18-year-old would be better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will go on record. I am pro-Prez.
Yeah, I'm pro-Prez. I would vote for him. Flower Party all the way. He completely upset the Republican and Democratic Party. We'll get to that, but he gains fame initially by fixing all the clocks in his town. So he becomes like a local hero. Like, he really just started to care and became this kind of okay, everybody likes him. He's willing to put in the work and do some good.
But he's surrounded by all these sycophants who are like, your racing time was this. Actually, sir, it was this. It's even better than you thought. And I'm like, oh, this does not bode well. And the book turns out much better than the first 3 pages I'll give you, but man, I'm like,
Yeah, he's like Johnny Storm. He loves racing hot rods.
Yeah, I'm shutting down your negativity, Vince, because in the first page we got like a hot rod racing and we got clock fixing, which is like two major extremes for this character. So I'm like, this guy is an everyman and he is going to surprise me.
Yeah,
in ways that I could never imagine. That's what I saw in this thing.
Yeah, he's a nerd like Obama, but he's also cool like Obama.
Yeah.
He wears a turtleneck sweater with the logo of with the eagle logo of the Office of the President of the United States on his chest, and that's his costume, I guess.
He does, like, we'll get to it. He does kind of become like a superhero-ish type figure in a way. But we'll get to all that. For right now, he is just like a cool teen with like kind of an iconic-ish look. Like, they tried very hard to make him not just regular teen, and I think it works. Like, you see him and you're like, okay, I know that's him, and I remember because he's got like the wavy blonde hair and the turtleneck. Which, man, I know. Hey, maybe not fashionable these days. It's a little hot, but back in the 70s, I imagine, that's like cool cat number one.
So this book is like very implausible, but it tries to explain to me how this president happened. So in 71, with the 26th Amendment, 18-year-olds got the vote, which was, as a result of Vietnam. They're like, all these kids are dying for their country, but they can't even vote for their Congress people that are sending them to war. So I get why that happened. And I also understand, like, well, fuck, if we start letting 18-year-olds vote, then this is going to cascade down, and then 18-year-olds, a.k.a. boomers, are just going to take over the government, and that's what's going to happen, and then they'll just elect younger people. So what happened in the fiction of this story is after the real 26th Amendment passed, then somehow the boomers also passed another amendment to the Constitution to let kids run for Congress, which said amendment would require approval by 2/3 of the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
And then
none of this timeline doesn't make any sense, and the actual it's completely impossible.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to put myself like in the picture of like 1973. Like maybe it isn't impossible because they literally just have passed like 2 constitutional amendments in a 5-year span, like between that and the 25th Amendment, the presidential succession. So, I mean, this was an era where amendments were happening like fast and furious. Which it seems like throughout this book, their policy is like, let's pass an amendment to do this. Let's pass an amendment to do this. And I'm like, maybe the governments of this time really thought that was going to happen because we haven't had a constitutional amendment in decades, have we?
No, not. It's been like 30 years. It's been, at least, if not a little longer.
So
maybe, I think we'll have a few coming up soon. I can't wait.
Anyway, at this point, our antagonist for the issue appears, Boss Smiley.
What a good antagonist too!
What a great visual!
Up, yeah, he's just got this look at this smiley face going on.
He's an emoji,
and
he's a human
it's
emoji.
Just like it's a big smiley face emoji, and it's like he represents, like, this book is so ahead of its time in talking about, especially in the world of comics, talking about stuff like rich versus poor and the 1%, corporate corruption, like, oh, the system is rigged and all that. And so, like, Boss Smiley is this, he's always got his smile on, right? But he is, like, he represents corporate evil. And he comes to Prez and says, hey, you're going to be the next president, and I'm going to have you in my pocket.
Right, and I mean, he's like they do some lip service to like, oh, we own both parties stuff, but in his office there's a photo with Richard Nixon.
And is this before Nixon resigned?
Well, it's 73 or 74, right? So at least, I mean, people knew about Watergate by this point.
Yeah, it was already out there. So Boss Smiley is just like instantly, like, you're just like, okay, this guy's terrible. He's treating everyone like crap. Pretty much, kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like a melodramatic almost villain in how cartoonishly evil he is. But it's also stuff like, they're building a new road and they're having the demolition ceremony for it, and they're like, okay, is that thing gonna blow up the dam? Like, okay, whatever. Well, my dam company will build another one, so I make money both ways. Yay.
Yeah, I've been trained that by my liberal pinko growing up that anybody named Boss something is inevitably bad. So
absolutely. Yep, this boss is one bad dude. They also, like, at one point he's driving by like a forest or whatever, and he throws his lit cigar out into the forest, where our sidekick character, a Native American teenager named Eagle Free, is hanging out with a very strange collection of animals. I guess that I don't know if the animals are there when he goes to put out the fire, but there's like an elephant, there's some monkeys, there's like a squirrel, an elk. It's like one of everything from too many different environments. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I still love the details.
Maybe a circus came through and Eagle Free rescued them.
That sounds pretty. I'd love to read that story actually, because I didn't know. Like Eagle Free is kind of the guy who takes this book from being like, okay, a little bit more on the political side to a little bit more of the like buddy team up comedy kind of side. Like it starts to feel like Johnny Quest in a way. Anytime that Prez and Eagle are running around doing their thing, like it's kind of like who knows what we're gonna run into, but it's still got this sort of political undertone to it the whole time.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
I really like that aspect of sort of like fun details mixed with stories about just things you wouldn't expect, and that kind of continues throughout the whole thing. But yeah, Eagle Free. Then none of this makes any damn sense. Eagle Free has been raised with the animals by all of them at the same time. I don't know why, but he has respect for nature, and he knows that Boss Smiley is a bad guy, and so they break into his office and find all the paperwork that says he's a bad guy. Prez isn't even president yet at this point. He's just like become a senator, and now
he hasn't even become a senator. He's running for office.
That's right. You're right. He's not even a senator yet.
Which we'll get to. But Prez thinks that Eagle Free is just like a troublemaker and doesn't realize that he's on the side of the bad guys yet. So then he fights a gorilla and an elephant.
Oh, yeah. The fights throughout this book are just fucking ridiculous in the best way possible. I love it. He fights
he starts this kid who just fixes clocks starts this book by fighting a gorilla and an elephant, and it goes from there.
Mm-hmm. It goes from there. Baby, you ain't seen nothing yet. So he and Eagle Free break into Boss Smiley's office, punching up a lot of thugs on the way, and they find out, oh, it's true, but Boss Smiley shows up. He's like, it's too late. You can't do anything. I'm going to find myself a new candidate who's going to take orders, but the election is tomorrow, and oh my goodness, Prez wins. And things steamroll.
He wins Senate. He wins the Senate, and then within that page somehow becomes president.
Yeah,
it's so fast. Literally, the first panel is like, okay, Senate, and then bam, 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 he's president now.
So I'm trying to think. So this is where I draw the line of plausibility of this book. So somehow Prez has. I don't understand why you need the Senate plot. Why is he just not straight up running for president? So I guess we're to believe that he won Senate and then 2 years later runs for president?
I think what it is that he won Senate, and maybe that inspired Americans to lower the age for president as well. And they were like, we love this guy so damn. Basically, it's the Obama story, right? He becomes senator, and like, we love him so much, we cannot wait to make this guy president.
Okay, right. But that even took 4 years.
Right. So, but even in the world of this comic, where he, spoiler alert, fights vampires, they're still like, well, he should have some experience, right? It would be stupid if we just named a moron to be president.
Yeah, that's implausible.
Out of nowhere, without any political experience. Yeah, that way I could grab.
So this 18-year-old, he wins Senate, or maybe he's not even 18. They changed the Constitution down from 35 to whatever age Prez is. I guess he's still a teen. To become president, and the flower party that he's at wins the electoral college, which means the flower party has enough representation in every state to win, yet somehow all of the Senate and the House is against him, even though they didn't lose any seats apparently in the last 2 elections. Because all the old guys in the Senate and the House are like, fuck this guy, we need to impeach him. I'm like, how? I would have.
Listen, man, it happened. It happened, and that's it. Deal with it, man. Prez is our president now. Live with it.
No, so Prez won, but the flower party got no other seats? Is that what we're to believe?
Listen, we're living in a universe where the flower party kind of represents all love, man. But Democrats and Republicans all over America became more centrist and
not
started
straight ticket
electing
voters.
18-year-olds. That's how it happened. I'm telling you. I'm gonna write Vince. I'll do you a favor. I'm gonna write in a Prez comic book explaining how all this stuff worked politically. But I really just want to get to the vampires and werewolves.
Yes,
so we're gonna
yes.
jump to number 2.
Hey, Eagle Free
issue
is
1
FBI
had a
chief.
really good. What's that?
Eagle Free is FBI chief also.
Yes, Eagle Free becomes FBI chief. The first issue had a really good cliffhanger where they
Yes.
said, "They'll never guess who my VP is."
my
can
mom.
you guess, reader?
I
Can
was
you guess?
so confused by that. I was like, is there a clue in the book? How am I supposed to
There's
guess?
There's really
His
not.
mom.
Yeah, it's his mom. Just like all the great DC heroes, Batman, Superman, and Prez, they all have parents named Martha. Well, mom's named Martha. Right?
Yeah.
And so in the upcoming Batman versus Superman versus Prez movie that they do,
But you couldn't
that
stop
last
Martha.
scene is
What?
going to be... What?
What did you say?
Oh, my
Oh,
mom,
man.
the vice president, Martha.
Oh, yeah, Vice President Martha. So she's a pretty good vice president. It's not really an exciting reveal or anything. It's just like, okay, she's the vice president. She acts more like his secretary, though, which is kind of like... I don't know if I necessarily like that.
Yeah.
I'd like to see her going off doing her own thing, but that's okay.
So
The second issue is all about playing chess against the Russians.
He also hates going to
which
meetings.
is very topical,
He hates
then
going to
and now.
meetings.
I love the first issue sets it up like this is going to be a political intrigue book, and then the second issue
Hey.
is like he's fighting Russian chess supervillains.
And they're very cartoonish. And this one really threw me for a loop because I said, "Oh, this is not what I thought this book was going to be." And so I think as a result, this issue actually ended up being one of my least favorite ones throughout. But I think as I got more used to the style, I might go back and reread this one afterwards because I think I'll like it a lot more now. But it's a lot of fun where the Russians have like evil big chess robots, or no, it's like the American guy who's so damn full of himself. It was like he's like a Bobby Fischer parody.
Yeah, and his name is what, like Robert Fishman or something like that, and then he makes a Bobby Fischer reference.
Which is always weird to me when you're parodying somebody and then you make a reference to the real person. Like, well, what about that guy? What's he doing?
So, is this the
His
same
name
guy
is
that
clearly
also,
important.
Is this the same guy that donned blackface so he could then join the America Black team?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
whoa,
that's
whoa,
him.
whoa, guys.
Yeah, he's not meant to be a likable character, but you also are led to believe that he's the guy who's kind of behind all these weird attacks. I don't even remember what the issue was, but like, I don't know.
There's terrorist bombings in D.C., but people think that Prez is too young and immature to be able to handle it because he's not presidential enough. Because he's some jabroni off the street that has no political experience.
Oh, but boy, does he handle it. He comes in fists ablazing, punching shit up here, punching shit up there. That's what I really want. A president who will punch things.
I like a president that when you punch him, he punches back even harder. That's what I want.
A president who punches. That's a good.
Yeah. I mean, he's been trained by Eagle Free. He's an expert fighter.
He is an expert fighter now. The two of them together, man, running around fighting, punching. And so they run to this Robert Fishman's place to beat him up. They run through his chess robots and his big chessboard mazes of a home, and they find out that the real villain was the evil Russian chess player. What's her name? The Russian queen, who has like a cape. Everyone has a damn cape in this.
So the Russians are trying to interfere with our politics here? It's a very fictional book. Let's hope this story never happens, but it may someday.
Never happen. Yeah, it could in the future. We'll see. So they find her and they beat her up, and it's the end of that one. But we have another good cliffhanger. I got this Joe Simon guy really good at writing cliffhangers that kind of barely have anything to do with the next issue. But there's like a gunshot, and it's like, assassination in the White House. What?
This book is
this is maybe one of the weirdest cliffhangers I've ever read because it's a whole page that has nothing to do with anything. And then the actual events in the next issue are kind of not exactly how they went down in the cliffhanger anyway.
Yeah, right?
It's like very bizarre to me, but it was enough for me to go like, okay, yeah, I'll check it out. I'll read the next issue.
Because that ends with Prez trying to pass a gun control amendment.
And
People
And
don't
that's what
take
the
our
whole
guns.
next issue is. It's sort of like a gun control thing, which is, again, topical in a weird way. I didn't expect to have so much resonance with what's going on right now, but it's like a group of historical reenactors who think they really are in the revolution.
And Eagle Free's got he's got people who have infiltrated all of the right-wing gun nut job teams, is what he says. So,
that's right. Yeah.
So any of these organizations, don't worry about it. I got people everywhere. Because I don't know if we said Eagle Free is the director of the FBI.
He's damn good at it too. For a man who grew up in the forest, he is damn good at being head of the FBI.
He's like another Hoover. He's so good.
So like, there's this whole like these damn reenactors are just so in love with the past, and they're scared that the government is trying to take their guns away. So they dress up like a bunch of idiots and march against the government, saying that they're going to kill the president, acting like a bunch of damn rednecks. This is the 70s. Also, this is not today. This is the 70s. They also like bring in their biggest, toughest guy to beat Prez up. Prez is like, okay, I challenge you, and like if I win, then you're gonna back out of here. And the nut jobs say, hey, okay, we're gonna send you our biggest, toughest guy, and they fight. And oh my god, this guy's big and tough and strong, but Prez wins. I guess is that what happens?
Yep.
And yeah, Prez gets the upper hand, and then
Prez almost kills him, and Eagle Free's like, "Yo, don't kill him. You're better than that."
Yeah, that's right. And all shit breaks out. Everyone's fighting, guns are blazing everywhere. We find out that guy, the big tough guy that Prez beat, was one of Eagle Free's hired men working on the inside. I don't know how Eagle Free could be so confident that they'd send him in. That would be like the plan. Like he's gonna fight, but it worked out.
Also, Eagle Free was like, we'll just convince Gregor Washington, great grandson of George Washington, that rather than have all this bloodshed, we'll just have a one-on-one fight. Okay, cool. And then Eagle Free was
that's right. That he was like the great the heir of George Washington. That's why he thought he was so fucking entitled. Oh yeah, this asshole.
And so then like immediately after Prez beat the ringer, then all the gun nuts the nut jobs still started the war anyway. So
yeah, I don't know if they backed out on the deal, and they said, okay, we're gonna fight anyways because we have guns, and yeah. Mm-hmm. And how do they finally win? I think they just like Prez and they're like, hold your fire. They're trying to get our side of the army to stop. And yeah, I don't know how things end up just like quietly aiming. People are shooting guns at each other, and then all of a sudden they stop. Oh, he does get a rope tied around his neck at some point.
By a horse.
By a horse, and I don't know how he's dead because in the next panel everything is like okay. And
that turtleneck kept him.
The turtleneck saved his life.
Oh, the turtleneck.
My problem.
This is why they're coming back.
This issue is again preposterous. Like this entire book. I think I texted Chris while we were reading this. I'm like, this book, man, this book is preposterous. But my only problem with this particular issue is it starts with, is Prez dead? Is he shot from the previous cliffhanger? And then then there's just like a later scene of him just like rolling around. Like I guess he's not dead. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was never even a question about it. It was like there was in like the beginning of a news cruise and all that, but yeah, it just doesn't. They just don't even answer it. Yeah, it's just like kind of weird.
And I will say, after he wins, Prez gives a speech on the Senate floor, and it's the only part of Prez where I'm like, I don't know about this. I agree with most of his policies, but he says. Speakers or members of the House, this day I have passed from a callow youth to a mature man. I have learned from this tragedy that force cannot be met with cool phrases, love, or flowers. And some senator is like, "You're learning, Prez." And then meanwhile, these female members of Congress are like, "Warmonger, traitor, hawk."
It was sort of like such a beautiful little moment of real humanity, I thought, where he's like, oh gosh, okay, yeah, I'm learning that my dreams and ideals aren't always necessarily going to be true. It's not always going to work, and you have to figure out ways around this sort of stuff. It was a cool little moment. I didn't really expect to see it coming. I thought it was just going to be like good triumphs over evil, and that's it, and we're always right, you know.
Yeah, and the book is definitely going to follow up on that realism.
What's that?
The book is definitely going to follow up on that realism.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. But no, I mean, even with that, there are these sort of like, I don't know. It is trying to teach you lessons in that sort of Captain Planet-y way, but lessons that don't feel quite as youngstery as shows like that. You know, it's like it was actually trying to talk about some stuff that was a little bit more important, which I would
have liked this instead of the Tom Clancy books I read as a kid.
Oh yeah, did I read any? I think I read one Tom Clancy book.
I read them all,
and
I was a little like into bombing other countries like real bad.
Jeez.
And I'm like, okay, that's appropriate for a teenager, but now I'm like, I needed more of like this like commie pinko, you know, like isn't everybody? If we just all worked together, we'd be a lot happier with the flower party.
Yeah.
This is definitely like an aspirational political book, but it's Chris. I think you articulated to me as the West Wing of comics. It's like this is the best we can do. And then by issue 4, like this is not selling.
Yeah, I think the idea was like, oh, we'll have like a political message, and then by issue 4, what if he fought Dracula?
So this is the issue where I really was like, oh, this is what this comic is going to be. And it's like, it's fucking perfect, because you can go like from the first issue where it's like all political intrigue to like supernatural governments fighting each other weirdness. It's like, okay, so I mean, this issue is the head of the United States fighting the head of Transylvania, having like issues of diplomacy, like talking about that. And yeah, like, yes, it's very, very, very ridiculous, but it's talking about diplomacy and how you're like supposed to go through the proper channels and do the stuff, even though like you know Dracula's a bad guy, but you have to convince the Senate and Congress that you need to bomb Dracula, and that's not going to happen because they're all a bunch of idiots, right? And so you got to go take the fight to him. But oh my God, now there's a scandal because you're taking the fight to them. Oh, that's not allowed, and so you've got to come up with a clever plan to take him out instead. Which clever plan was kind of weird. Like, should throw a bunch of birds into their plane so they're plane faster. That was, that happened. We're jumping ahead way too fast here because I want to talk about the Trojan horse more than anything. All right, let's start at the beginning. The Wolfman shows up.
He's an ambassador from Transylvania.
In wolf form!
But he looks a little like Nixon, doesn't he?
He looks a little like what?
Like Nixon? No, when he turns back into human form.
In human form.
But he shows up in wolf form.
Yeah,
he's
he looks a little like Nixon.
I'm the ambassador from Transylvania, representing Dracula. I have a briefcase that looks like a coffin. Don't worry about it. I'm definitely not going to leave it in the Oval Office. It definitely doesn't have Dracula in it.
Definitely not. And he says, hey, my Royal Highness Count Dracula the First, that's who's in charge of this shit, so you better listen and respect and, like, help Transylvania out, I guess. What's his demands?
It's really silly.
Open up trade with Transylvania, I guess. I don't know. Some shit like that. And he says that he's working for Dracula, and that's the beautiful quote you chose, Chris, and that it's like, but he was born 550 years ago with tied to the stake in his heart. Oh no! And they have this big revelation where they need to like get to Transylvania, but oh my God, that briefcase shaped like a coffin. Guess what was inside? It's Dracula. He snuck into the damn White House, and he's gonna try and assassinate Prez. Oh no!
Does Dracula have his legs?
What? Okay, and I don't know why. Do they ever explain why?
No, they don't explain. He does not have his legs. He only has stumps.
Well, he's like strapped to like a little, like a, what do you call that thing? Like a dolly, like a little piece of wood with wheels on it, right? And I don't know why. Like, it looks like he's got knees. Like, you can see his knees bending backwards.
No, I think
don't know
he's got
why
stumps.
Stumps
where his
knees.
Is it just stumps? I think that's the end of.
Is there something that happened with the DC Universe Dracula at this point?
I don't think so.
They never explain it, and I'm just like, but the visual image of him, like, he's got these like special things on his hands to help him, like paddle along on the ground real quickly, and like zooms out the White House down the stairs to get out of there. It's like these beautiful images of him like running around, punching people and grappling, all while strapped to this thing. It's
why? I didn't notice this when I was reading it. And Chris was telling me about this today, and I'm like, why? Like, because
I have no idea why.
It doesn't make any sense. And he's like under, like, Prez's bed is too high, so Dracula can't even like look over his bed when he rolls up to kill Prez.
I'm wondering if it was meant to be on purpose so that his footsteps wouldn't make noise as he's sneaking around. Maybe
he can turn into a bat.
Right. I don't know.
Where was the Secret Service too? Dracula rolls through the White House.
He does. He rolls right through. There's nobody in any of the hallways.
They don't want to defend him. The Secret Service doesn't like him. They're all over 30, and all the over 30s hate him.
There really is like there's like 4 pages, 5 pages, 6 pages of him running around on this thing, just like rolling around, punching people, which could have been used to like explain him being all Dracula-like and putting people under his spell and getting these guards out of the way. No, it's more fun to watch him roll around and claw at stuff.
So how does Dracula defeat it, guys?
How does he get defeated right now? Oh, that's right. So he has Eagle-Free has a Nazi swastika?
No, wrong.
It's a Native American swastika.
That's right. But Dracula thinks it's a Nazi swastika, right? Well, and so he's like, "Oh my god, I have to get away from this thing."
I need to get fucking away from these Nazis who have infiltrated the White House. He's not like that because that part that would be realistic. But what?
No, I really don't understand why he ran away. Because if he was just like, "Oh my god, Nazis are so evil,"
he thought it was
then even more reason for me to kill you.
He thought
right?
Well, apparently Ego-Free told him that it was because Native Americans did have the swastika before the Nazis did, and he told him it was a cross, and obviously vampires hate crosses, so he was like, "Fuck, it's a cross." But it looks to me like the president and his FBI director busted out a swastika to scare away infiltrators, and that's
right. Yeah, that's what it is. That's right. It's a Native American cross, which counts enough.
Although Prez doesn't seem to be convinced that it is a Native American cross and not a swastika because he says he fell for it.
Yeah. Well, no, I guess maybe fell for it in the sense that would a Native American cross even do anything to a vampire, and is he willing to risk it? I don't know. Maybe that's what it was.
But Dracula's
senators and congressmen are demanding Prez resign because Prez wants to go to war, and they're making him seem like a warmonger.
Yeah, Prez asked for war powers to fight the vampires, and they're like, no.
Yeah, what are you talking about, man? Dracula seems okay. Transylvania, it's a good place to go. We got a good relationship with them, maybe. I don't know. So they they're getting attacked now by the Wolfman and Dracula by plane for whatever reason. There's like a shipment of some kind of like a drug, like a like a gas in it, right? And it's going to kill a bunch of people very stealthily.
They're going to drop a plane full of rabid bats all over America.
That's what it is. Rabid bats that are going to disease. Yeah, all over America. And one senator
literally says, "What is this kid smoking?"
What is this kid smoking, man? Yeah, we're a damn rabid bat.
I'm gonna call a joint session of Congress.
Yeah,
there's gonna be rabid bats over America.
A joint session, Mr. President.
Joint session. Yeah. Followed by a blunt.
Mr. President, let me be blunt.
Let me be blunt. That was the better joke to make. This will be issue number. Yeah, this will be the issue. It'll all be in the issue that I write to help explain the political aspect of the stuff,
issue
the joint session and all that. So they send up a bunch of birds that Eagle-Free has trained to like clog up the jets of the plane. I guess. I mean, these birds are dead, right?
Yeah, he knows they're gonna die.
Suicide birds.
Which is terrible, but that's why this chapter was called Suicide Mission. I hadn't flipped back through it. I thought it was in reference to Dracula maybe coming in and willing to risk it all, but not against Nazis. Not gonna get out of here. Willing to risk it all, but that's not what happened at all. It was the poor birds.
Yes. I mean, this is actually realistic because the French have trained hawks to take on drones because you can buy drones real cheaply now and strap bombs to them. So the French have trained hawks to go and attack drones, and the hawks actually die when killing the bomb drones. But this is again realistic that people have trained robots to take on technology or hawks to take on technology. So
great.
This book is very realistic,
I'm glad
guys.
that if you approve of anything in this book, Vince, it's the birds taking down Dracula and Wolfman. You're on record as saying that that's the most realistic part of this book.
Yep.
Is birds taking down Dracula and Wolfman.
Oh, and the cliffhanger is like, are we gonna have to spend like billions of dollars to rebuild Transylvania?
Yes, that's right. Oh God, we're gonna be in there for decades. We need to pull out. We need to pull out. Oh,
We didn't have an
man.
escape plan. Man, it's just gonna, like, I mean, Dracula was like the threat we knew. Like now, it's just like a lot of nation states warring in there. A lot of different factions. We're gonna have some.
Yeah, I mean, now you got the mummy, you got the Frankenstein's monsters, and they're all fighting amongst themselves.
Vices.
I gotta tell you, for a 1970s book, all these things, for a book on 1970s politics specifically, like this thing really didn't feel like it was too like muddled with the past. It was just like, all right, it does still feel like an old 70s comic, sure, and that sort of style, but it just still like resonates with everything that's going on today. It's crazy.
It's mildly discouraging to me that we haven't moved past any of this shit in 45 years.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very like that's really the most depressing thing. Where it's like, okay, yeah, this is a problem. This has been a problem. We've known it's a problem. Nobody knows how to fix it. Shit. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Our vampire attacks have been happening, and we don't do anything.
We just don't do anything. Congress can't make up their mind about whether we should take out these damn vampires or not. Ugh.
Congress is the opposite of progress.
And so with that issue, Prez was canceled. So sad.
Too beautiful
I'm really
for this
disappointed.
world.
I really wish there was more. There was number 5 that was unpublished, but it was released without color. I don't know. We found a copy floating around somewhere online. Did any of you actually read this one?
I didn't.
I kind
did.
of scanned through it. I did not read it.
I had as much as I say I love the art, it is so busy that trying to read an uncolored version of it really kind of started to mess with my eyes because it was just so detailed all over the place that it was real difficult to read without color. So maybe it's just talking about it, I maybe love it more. So maybe I'll have to go back and read number 5. But that's not really the end of Prez. He's been kind of mentioned here and there. There is a reboot of him that was like a 6-issue miniseries about a young girl named Prez. Or I don't know if she's named. Her name's not Prez, but she kind of same story.
Yeah, which me and Chris we discovered. I had heard on another podcast that there's a recent DC Flintstones book that's been making some waves for our SJW friends. That basically like Fred Flintstone's supposed to like try to trick Cro-Magnons into working in a corporate structure and being exploited as workers, and it's from the writer of the new Prez. And it's supposed to be like really, really good. It's on Comixology this week for sale for like $4 if you want to check that out. So this new Prez may actually be okay.
I don't doubt it. Like I kind of just knew of it. I didn't really know what it was about. But after reading kind of like this original premise, I'm real curious to check that out. But we did say we're going to read one more issue. We read Sandman number 54, and that's because Neil Gaiman took the character of Prez and kind of gave him an ending. And Vince, I know you said you really you loved it a lot more. It made you like the character more.
I did.
I kind of had the opposite reaction. I didn't know if it was necessary for me. It was kind of a different take on the character, which is acceptable.
So I may have come in with lowered expectations because I'd never really. I've read like the first 12 issues of Sandman multiple times because I hear it's so great. But I've never been able to get into Sandman, and so this is like issue.
Same with me. It's not for me. Yeah.
So this is issue 54 of Sandman. So this is like 4 years later after Gaiman's actually like been a comic book writer for like a few years now, and figured out the book. It doesn't have the terrible art that it started with at the beginning. Instead, it's our boy Mike Allred. So I think maybe just that, like having lowered expectations about being worried about, Sandman not liking it, that I came into this being like, this is a fun, pleasant, like Vertigo House of Mystery style story, and I like the art.
Yeah.
It seemed to like fix some of the kind of things of like, we named him Prez, like, yeah, because I wanted to have him an inspirational name, not just because I wanted to have the, like, it seemed hackneyed the way it was in the original book. Like, it was like, we named him Prez so I could be president. And I'm like, that seems dumb.
Yeah. And he wears a shirt with his own name before he's president.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few things that he talks about that are like, okay, on the day that he was elected president, it was like this big day full of miracles. And that I was like, okay, some of these details of miracles, like, all right, a kid with a birthmark of the USA. All right, cool. That's a fine miracle. I'll get, not miracles, magnificent omens, right? That's the word, because somebody, during a I'm just going to read this. During a 42nd Street screening of Hot Teenage Love Sluts, the climactic sex scene was interrupted by the couple replacing their clothes and performing highlights from Guys and Dolls to an outraged audience.
But only on that day?
What? This just doesn't make sense to me.
So on other days that Hot Teenage Love Sluts aired, it had its climactic love scene, but this day it was spliced out? Is that what we're led to believe?
Right. Okay. Like, that just doesn't make sense. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, these are like, some of these things are like weird, and like you hear them, they're like apocryphal stories. Like, that didn't happen. You're like, okay, it's just part of the legend. In Caesar's Palace, Las Vegas, every slot machine in the building bestowed its jackpot simultaneously. What? Like, that's like a confirmed, like a big, like economic thing. And then many blind people regained their sight, deaf people regained their hearing. I'm like, okay, all right, so this is like a big miracle sort of thing. Like, now we're getting past the realm of like commentary on society, and we're trying to bring in some like divine meaning behind the whole thing, right?
Yep.
And that's where I kind of like, all right, thanks Neil Gaiman, you're gonna make this more important than it really is. It's like a cool story. I liked it for being a cool story about human interaction and human desire and the sort of villainy that can come out of it. But it turned into something completely different.
But,
So, yeah,
but
that's
I did really think it was an interesting twist, because the Neil Gaiman story really plays up Boss Smiley, who unfortunately disappeared from the book. This makes it him. He's really like his like number one kind of antagonist in a way that I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
I like that too. I imagine that Boss Smiley would have come back if we had seen more of the original series, and so I was happy to see him come back, because it is sort of like giving a little bit of closure to that side of the story.
Well, what I liked about it was like the first half was kind of like the first half of the story was like very like, this is how Prez saved the world, and he hosted SNL, which presidents don't do. Certainly, people not on their road to becoming president, right? But then I'm like, well, that seems implausible. But also, Obama, as a sitting president, did go on Colbert and several comedy shows. Probably wouldn't dedicate a whole week to SNL, but he somehow inspired John Belushi to quit drugs. So John Belushi is still alive in this universe, which okay. But then it has a turn where like Boss Smiley comes back to then say, okay, you're not gonna let me extort you. Well, then I'm going to make your life a living hell. I'm going to kill your wife or girlfriend. I'm going to do all these things that's like going to fuck over your presidency. And like the dark side of Prez kind of came through for like about 3 or 4 pages. And I enjoyed that aspect of it. And he was too good for our world. I think you need to build him up in an implausible way to then tear it down in the back half of the story.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But then it just gets into like shit that I don't care about with Sandman. So, like, I don't care about Death or whoever that girl is, and the guy who looks like Neil Gaiman is Dream or something, right?
Dream.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah, it all gets a little like I appreciate exploring the sort of kind of metaphysical side of the world and all that, but there's something a little too dreamlike about it for me. And Yeah, for this, that's a tough thing for me to say because I've come to really love all the Doctor Strange kind of madness and outer. I might have to give this whole thing a chance with a better lens here. But
I think I
yeah,
may
when I'm
just
in
start with, like,
political
issue
mode, I
18.
really didn't want to switch to like religion mode.
Yeah, and this was, I should mention, this is my first encounter with Prez. I read this. I mean, a lot of obscure DC comics I learned about from Sandman because he would make references to like the Jack Kirby Sandman or to the House of Mystery hosts, Cain and Abel, and different things where I'd be like, what is this? And then you go back and read like 70s comics and you're like, oh, he's just, he's taking this stuff and kind of doing the like Alan Moore, Grant Morrison kind of thing with it in a way that I don't even get because I don't know those comics.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah, we should probably finish this Sandman issue and talk about what happened. Prez kind of disappeared after he's done with his presidency. His girlfriend is dead, or wife, or whatever, was like assassinated. But there's like rumors about where he's gone, and there's rumors about his death, and nobody knows exactly how he died or when he died. It wasn't on the news, but everyone just kind of like knew he was dead. And this whole thing is being told in the lens of one of these metaphysical characters at what is it, like the inn of like the hotel or the. It's some Sandman creation. It's like some place where a lot of these lost souls end up going.
Yeah, and they're all just telling stories.
Right, it's all stories, yeah. And he's like, this is how I think it happened, where, what's her name? Is that Death? Is that her?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Death. Kind of escorts him to the afterlife, where he gets to the pearly gates and meets the guy in charge, who is Boss Smiley. What? Oh my God! Who?
Boss Smiley's
And
God.
yeah, he runs the world. He's there, but there's other universes, and then Dream shows up, who's the main character of all the Sandman stuff, and he says, no, there's other universes and all that. I just have you can go wherever you want. You can explore everything, and that's when we get some of that cool Jack Kirby style art with not really exactly, but a lot of that weird, crazy metaphysical stuff out there. You get to see Prez sort of walk through a doorway into another world. And yeah, that's about it.
And it's just kind of
Looks
acknowledging, like you're such a like positive figure, and like I really like your story, and I think you should, kind of move on from this like dead world where it's just you and Boss Smiley, and you should go on. And so he just kind of takes Prez away.
Mm-hmm. That aspect of it, I really appreciate it, because it is just about like, okay, telling stories, and this is a story, and here's a way to kind of end that one while still giving life to any other stories anyone wants to tell, which is always what I love about comic books. I always say, like, if somebody does a bad iteration of something, okay, that happened, but anything else can still happen. Like, that doesn't matter. It's just a shared universe with shared characters, right? Have fun with it. So I appreciate Neil Gaiman for what he's done there. Again, not for me. I'm of the opinion that he's a little overrated. Just not for me. I'm sorry, Neil Gaiman. I'm sorry. I know everybody loves him, but I am the king of unpopular opinions. I'm glad Vince
I had a
agreed
hard
with it.
time getting through. I don't like the art, and I think Gaiman was like trying to figure out comic writing or trying to mimic Alan Moore maybe too much.
Well, y'all are talking about the first few issues of Sandman, right? Not this issue. This issue is, I think, when he's found his voice and he's just telling different stories.
It's got Mike Allred
But
art.
it's
I
still
love
that-
it. I love it.
Yeah, it's just a little too self-important for my taste in a way.
Yeah, that's where I was like,
I don't know.
because I was like not following the plot line. I'm like, okay, I don't. What is going on here in these last 6 pages? Maybe I'd care, but I don't care. I care about
Yeah,
Prez.
I had a rough time
Yeah,
with it.
needs
I'm
more
sorry. I'm
Prez.
sorry. But I'm glad we read it. I almost can sometimes read Sandman better when I'm treating it as kind of like a encyclopedic kind of thing. It's like reading old 60s comics. It's like, okay, I'm reading this and I'm going to just kind of learn about stuff. Cool. But yeah, I overall really love Prez. He's now one of my new favorite characters. So thank you, Chris, because I did not expect that. I thought this was really awesome. And I really am sad that there's no more Prez written by Joe Simon. I think that's why I'm going to have to go read that 5th issue. But I know I'm not going to get the closure I want from it. Vince, you didn't like it. You're not going to read any more Prez.
No, I won't. But I actually talking with Chris today, I was like, this is better than I thought it was. Than my initial reading of it was. It's silly, and the more I think about it, I'm like, this is. I need more silly comics in my day that don't like give a shit and don't need to be in continuity and don't care and. It was funny, and it goes off the rails like way too quickly, but it's funny. It's first issue.
I'm a fan of using silly details to tell bigger and more important stories, and I think that for me is like keeping the silliness alive. That's another reason I didn't like the Neil Gaiman stuff. Like it wasn't really very silly, and I really like that aspect of Prez, that it does feel hokey. Maybe that's a result of it being a '70s comic. Maybe that's a result of Wolfman and Dracula. I don't know.
I feel like he's trying, though. I don't feel like it's accidentally silly.
It really is. I love it. Those costumes with the chest spokes in that issue, it's like there's no denying it. But I think that it's about closing the door on Prez. Chris, I'll let you have the final word on Prez. Your pick. Go for it.
I mean, I'm so happy. I mean, I was first introduced, like, I read this story, and then I listened to a podcast a few years ago that covered, I think it was just the Transylvania issue of Prez, and I was just like, what is this? And I was like, I gotta find these comics. And they're great. They're really fun. Like I said, we didn't talk about the art that much, but he does a really good job. There's so many little details, and there's chapter titles for every chapter, which are like every chapter is like 4 pages, but they're little flourishes where it'll be like winter at I forget what it was, a play on words on Valerie Forgery, that's what it was. And I was like, I get this. This is like a Bullwinkle joke.
Yeah, the whole thing, it had a very Rocky and Bullwinkle feel, now that you bring it up. Yeah, where it's like that same kind of silliness, but like dealing with like crazy over-the-top spies and stuff like that. Yeah, man, Rocky and Bullwinkle. I'm going to go watch some Rocky and Bullwinkle after this.
It's very poorly animated.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. So that's it on Prez. For next time, we are going to be... well, look at this. More vampires. Oh, isn't that curious? We are going to be reading Preacher. The second season of the TV show, I think, just started as we're recording this. And so why not a good time to go back and talk about some Preacher? Written by Garth Ennis, art by Steve Dillon. The team that they're probably most famous for Preacher, but also like the folks responsible for probably the best Punisher run, what is regarded as one of the best Punisher runs. We keep talking about it. Maybe we'll have to read that at some point. Have we read any Garth Ennis on the show before?
Not yet.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because I love his Punisher. Preacher's okay in my book, and I don't like anything else he's ever written.
I like his Hitman. I'll add that to the list.
I don't like Hitman.
Okay, yeah. I've read his Hitman too, or parts of it, and I really enjoyed it.
I like
but
that.
Yeah, he's got a very kind of
now.
like over the top, very action heavy style, which is cool. But works, I think sometimes, and I have also seen instances where it doesn't work. So I think Preacher mostly does work in a good way. I think it certainly does get better as it goes. But we'll just be reading the first volume, issues 1 through 7. To kind of talk about it a little bit and get a feel for what the show's about and talk about that. I'm excited. Are you guys excited?
Yep, I haven't seen the TV show. Have either of you guys seen it?
No, I have not. But I really like a lot of the people involved in it. There's she was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and she's on that show too, and also the guy who plays Howard Stark in the TV Marvel stuff. He's on the show, so yeah, I might have to check this thing out. But yeah, I'm excited to at least, if I am gonna watch it, I'd rather read it first, So maybe I'll start here and go all the way through. But we'll talk about that next time, right? Join us, won't you? For Vince and Chris and myself, Kia, thank you so much for listening. I love you, and I will see you next time.
And remember that Prez lives in all of our hearts.
Forever.